Hello and welcome back to Phantom Fables TV. Don't forget to show your support by liking, commenting, subscribing, and turning on notifications. Just a quick message before we get started, guys. I want to apologize. I know it's been over a year since I've uploaded any new stories. Long story short, went through some big changes in my personal life. Things are starting to look up, and hopefully, we get this channel rolling again. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to upload every week like we were previously, but maybe once every other week, just because life is purely chaotic and very busy. I want to thank my subscribers for staying subscribed and hanging around and being so patient with me. It is greatly, greatly appreciated, you guys. But without further ado, let's get into today's story. Some people were absolutely obsessed with the idea of Slenderman. If you don't know who that is or what that is, it's an urban legend that depicts a slender and abnormally tall man with freakishly long extremities and a blank, expressionless face. I was indifferent about the idea of Slender Man. Some flat out thought it was a hoax. Truth be told, I kind of suspected the same thing. Well, one Halloween night of fun changed that. Myself and quite a few others. It was October 2009. My friends and I figured we had grown out of trick or treating. I mean, after all, we were all old enough to drive now. After weeks of racking our brains, we decided that we would sneak out and head down to Green Hall, an abandoned mall in our local town. We planned on drinking and partying and smoking, typical teenager things. The whole friend group was pretty excited about this. We had stocked up on booze, cigarettes, glow sticks, lanterns, and flashlights to get ready. To this day, I don't think there was anything more enticing to us as teenagers than that. There were about 10 people in our friend group: myself, my friend Cameron, Kyle, Brent, Connor, Deshaun, Morrow, Corey, Justin, Justin's girlfriend Avery, and Kyle's girlfriend Elizabeth. Unfortunately, this terrifying trip would result in many of these people never to see the outside of that abandoned mall again. This particular year, Halloween fell on a Saturday night, which was perfect. That meant none of us had curfews. We could stay out as late as we wanted to. None of us were bad kids per se, but I would have considered ourselves mischievous for sure. Avery had snatched a few bottles of booze from her dad's liquor cabinet, and Connor snatched a couple of packs of cigarettes from his older sister. Green Hall got its name from the main breezeway being covered in ivy plants. The mall shut down about 25 years ago, according to my parents. I'd only seen pictures of the abandoned mall from other kids at my school. It used to be a really popular place for people to sneak into, but the hype died down around 10 years ago. The mall sat down a long, deserted road, about a mile off the highway in our town. So if we were careful, we were hoping that nobody would see us out there, hoping that we would be undisturbed and have minimal chances of getting in trouble. However, I did have an eerie, lurking feeling that if we were to get into some kind of trouble, we'd be a long ways away from any kind of help. That afternoon, after school, I met up with Connor and Kyle. They wanted to go ahead and scout out the place and get familiar with the layout, since none of us had ever been there before. We drove to my parents' house, where Kyle and I parked our cars. We piled into Connor's van and headed out down the road. It was only about a 15-minute drive through town to the old place. We finally arrived at the old decrepit road, covered in cracks and potholes, overgrown trees and shrubs everywhere. The noise of the busy highway drowned out behind us as we went further and further down the road. The sunlight started to fade as we went deeper into the canopy of trees. Then, there it was, the colossal sized building, the outside covered in gray masonry, almost completely covered with green ivy creeping up the walls. It was eerily quiet for a place that was once bustling with people. The parking lot was barren, with an abandoned guard shack overlooking hundreds of yards of concrete parking. We cruised around the parking lot, hoping to find a spot to park where we would be hidden, just in case the police showed up or we got into any kind of trouble. After a few minutes of searching, we came to a small alleyway between the side of the building and the fence surrounding the area. We drove back behind the building to find an old loading dock. This loading dock stretched all the way around the other side of the building and back into the main road leading to Green Hall. "This is perfect," Connor exclaimed. And to be honest, I thought he had a good point. No one would think to drive around behind the building to come look for someone. especially if they had to drive through an alleyway this small. But the idea still made me anxious. We were a long ways away from anybody or any kind of help if we were to get into trouble. But at least we had some point of egress in case we needed to make a getaway. We parked by the loading dock and we all got out and kind of gawked at the building. Well, let's go inside, I chuckled nervously, breaking the awkward silence. We headed towards a door that already seemed busted open and made our way in. This place was undescribable. It had a beauty about it, like a wrecked ship left at sea. I stared in amazement. The broken glass ceiling let patches of light rip through the overgrown ivy and splashed onto the floor, and birds flying around who had now claimed this as their home. There were two stories connected with a large staircase. There seemed to be hundreds of what used to be shops, kiosks, and restaurants. The first area we were greeted with was the food court. We decided to make our way around the first floor going clockwise. Empty stores were followed by more empty stores. There were occasional benches and rest areas spattered between the large building, followed by an occasional overgrown botanical garden that somehow managed to survive all these years. We explored the entirety of the first floor before heading up to the second one. The second story was much different to our surprise. We found the perfect place to party and hang out. There was a large open area in the middle of the mall. It looked like it used to be a skating rink, but the large flat area would be perfect. We could push all the benches and seats into this area, sit down, and have a great time. There were also large trees on both sides of the open area, perfect for hanging some glow sticks and lanterns. After being content with finding the perfect place to party, we ventured even farther into the second floor. And after that, things got really weird really quickly. Scattered among the floor were purses, bags, clothing, merchandise, scattered everywhere. It's like a riot broke out and everyone that was there just dropped their stuff and ran. And then we came across something that stopped us dead in our tracks. We found that half of the second floor was completely boarded up, and right in the middle of it was an old wooden door, tattered with graffiti all over the walls and the door. Connor walked up to the door and gave it a quick jiggle, only to realize it was dead-bolted from the other side. That finding was very unnerving. What little anxiety disappeared after finding the perfect place to hang out was now back. We stared in silence, each of us reading the graffiti in our heads. The phrases were really odd, and they made no sense. One of them said, "The Tall One resides here. Praise be to mercy from the Tall One, and the man without a face has no soul." We broke our gaze from the graffitied wall to stare at each other. Kyle broke the silence, and he said, "Come on, guys, this is obviously a joke." An uncomfortable silence filled the air. I suggested that we head back before our parents start to ask where we had been. We turned and headed towards the staircase and down to the exit by the loading dock. We got back in Connor's van and headed back to my house. The image of the old building faded behind us as we headed back to the highway and home for the rest of the night. The next day, the friend group and I had sat down for lunch and told everyone about our findings. We had discovered the perfect place to hang out and party, right on the second floor. For once, I was actually excited for Halloween, for the first time since I was 9 years old. Suddenly, the discussion quickly changed from the perfect hangout spot to the creepy boarded up section of the second floor. Kyle pulled out his phone and passed around the pictures of the odd phrases tattooed on the walls we found on the second story. The rest of the group gawked in amazement. I guess I just didn't see the hype around it all. Then, all of a sudden, I heard the name of some creature that would forever change my entire life. Avery piped up in excitement. "It's Slenderman!" she exclaimed. Everyone looked at her in confusion. She quickly looked down at her phone and pulled out an article. Once the phone got to me, I looked down at a Wikipedia page describing the Slender Man. He was described as an urban legend that was tall and slender with no face, freakishly long arms with claws at the end, and freakishly long legs. And the creature was described as being approximately 10 feet tall. The Wikipedia page went on to say that most common sightings were around abandoned buildings or in the woods. I kind of chuckled to myself, thinking this was all nonsense, but I was so wrong. I brushed it off before heading back to class. At the end of the day, I headed straight home. I went to my room and sat in silence for a few moments before the curiosity got the best of me. I pulled out my laptop and began reading about Slenderman and watching some videos. All of them were prank videos or poorly put together animation. I was about fed up with all of it. But just as I was about to log out, a vlog caught my eye. The title was called He Who Has No Face. What unfolded in front of me absolutely blew me away. The vlogger's name was David. David traveled all around the world with his girlfriend. Nothing unusual. Until David and his girlfriend went off into the forest. On the video, you could see David's look of pure fear cemented on his face as him and his girlfriend ran for their lives. They escaped and went back home, but that wasn't the end of it. A video posted about 2 weeks after the first terrifying encounter, David's face still showed terror. He went into detail describing Slender Man, and what he said shook me to my core. The exact phrase spray painted on the second floor of that abandoned mall was exactly what David said in the video. The man with no face has no soul. Still in denial, I thought it was a coincidence. Week after week, David kept posting these videos, and you could see that his mental state was getting worse and worse. Then I came across another video. David looked dead inside this time, his eyes hollow like an empty glass face. He explained that no matter what they did or where they went, the one with no face followed him. The next video was the final video. David seemed to be in full blown paranoia. David's girlfriend went missing. He went into detail explaining that the Slender Man, the man with no face, was responsible for her disappearance. He told his friends, loved ones, and family that he loved them and that he was sorry for what he had to do. Even after all this information, I still had my doubts about the entire thing. After that, I decided to do a quick internet search. Sure enough, there it was. The police had suspected David for his girlfriend's disappearance, and after another few days after that last video, David took his own life. My body quickly became cold and clammy. Even if Slender Man wasn't real, I had a really bad feeling about this place. So I shot a message to the group chat and suggested that we find another place to hang out for Halloween. As expected, I was shot down and made fun of very quickly. I decided to turn my phone off for the night and get some sleep. I needed my sleep, whether it was for partying or running from Slenderman. The next morning, the sun ravaged through my half closed blinds. I picked up my phone and turned it on to see it was 11 a.m. Only a few more hours until the party. I opened the group chat and saw that most everybody was hyped about the party tonight. I was starting to think that I was the only one who had any kind of anxiety about this. Just then, my phone started to buzz on my nightstand. Kyle suggested that him, Elizabeth, and I should catch a ride in Connor's van, and we planned on meeting at my house. I was close with everyone in my friend group, but out of everyone, I was closest with Kyle and Connor. They were my best friends. Elizabeth agreed to be our designated driver, since we planned on having some drinks. That is one thing I appreciated about Connor and Kyle. They wanted to have fun, but always wanted to be cautious and safe. I just wish they would have taken this odd finding a bit more serious. I passed the rest of the day by myself, sitting in silence, playing some video games, scrolling through social media, making sure my phone was fully charged just in case something happened tonight. And just as the sun disappeared over the horizon, nighttime fell. My phone buzzed yet again. It was Connor. He had let me know that he was on his way to my house to pick me up. I sat there in silence, coaching myself, telling myself that it was going to be okay, that Slender Man wasn't real, and I should just focus on having fun tonight. I went to the closet to get dressed for the evening and pack all the glow sticks and flashlights that I had purchased for this night. A few minutes later, Connor's van flew into my driveway, music blaring. He rolled down the window and signaled for me to get in. I guess he could see the anxiety in my eyes as I approached his van. He told me to just relax and have fun. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was overthinking it all. We headed out to go pick up Kyle and Elizabeth. They were both already at Kyle's house. Kyle and Elizabeth piled into the van. Kyle already reeked of liquor. I made a comment to him in passing, to which he replied, "Can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning." Elizabeth rolled her eyes as Connor and I giggled at his stupid remark. And for a short minute, my anxiety was at bay. I was actually excited. I was going to get to hang out with my best friends in a cool abandoned place that most teenagers our age had never seen. After what seemed a short drive, the old raggedy road appeared in front of us. We made our way back to the parking lot, down the alleyway, and behind the building to the loading docks where we had told everyone to meet. Our other friends' cars began arriving and packing themselves into the loading dock area. We all gathered in one big group, cracked our glow sticks, turned on our lanterns and flashlights, and made our way into the old decrepit building. The loud and half drunk sounds of rambunctious teenagers echoed throughout the hollow shell of a building. And one thing was for sure, if there was anything in this building to be afraid of, it definitely heard us coming up the stairs. We made it to the area where we decided to hang out, and Trent fired up the loud music. The music boomed throughout the building, echoing with each beat of the bass. Seconds turned to minutes, minutes turned to hours, before looking down at my phone to see that it was almost midnight, and, of course, I didn't have any service. Other people had started to show up from other schools, and people that I didn't really know. We went from just the friend group of 10 people to friends of other friends showing up. There was now about 30 people here. I could see this getting out of hand really, really quickly. I definitely had a great time, but I was ready to leave. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a group of unknown girls from our school shining their glow sticks and lanterns at the graffitied area. The air was filled with loud, obnoxious giggles. Then, out of nowhere, the door leading to the boarded up area exploded open, sending shards of splinters all over the floor. The music came to a screeching halt, and a brief moment of silence filled the air when a fog emerged from the open doorway. It wasn't just any fog, it was darker than midnight. My blood ran cold, and then out of nowhere, a ginormous hand wrapped around the side of the doorframe when all of a sudden a 10-foot tall man in an all black suit emerged through the 7-foot doorway, crouching as he went through. The entire room, filled with drunken teenagers, erupted into pure chaos within a matter of seconds. Screams pierced through the air as terrified teenagers ran for their lives. Connor and I ducked behind a table we were sitting at to avoid being trampled and hopefully to conceal ourselves. We looked across the old skating rink to see Kyle hiding under another table, panicking, screaming at the top of his lungs, looking for Elizabeth. Kyle was freaking out so bad he couldn't see Elizabeth, who was sitting under the table directly next to him. Somehow the slender man sensed where he was and started heading directly towards him. With my quick thinking, I grabbed an empty vodka bottle and tossed it over the top of the head of the slender man. Smashing behind him, he turned and ran the opposite direction. Connor and I ran to Kyle and Elizabeth, picked them up, and told them to run. Run like hell and don't stop until you get to the van. No matter how fast we ran, we seemed to be moving at a snail's pace. Other teenagers and friends ran around chaotically. Others were screaming, looking for their friends. And at that moment, I knew the outcome of this night was not going to be a good one. We threw ourselves into the van, and Connor fumbled with the keys before shoving them into the ignition, and we took off. We flew around the corner and through the parking lot and down the old abandoned road to the highway. Elizabeth and I had our faces glued to the rear window, watching as the hell we experienced faded into the distance behind us. We had finally made it back to my house. The silence in Connor's van was deafening. What are we going to say happened? Elizabeth stammered. Connor was looking out the front window with a 1,000-yard stare. We are going to say that we left before any of this crazy stuff happened, I told them. They might be able to prove that we were there, but not for how long, I explained to them as calm as could be. Do you think people got killed? Connor stammered with a shaky voice. I told them that I had no idea and that it was probably for the best. We parted ways. I went inside, and Connor and Elizabeth took off to their respective houses with Kyle. I went inside and seemed to stare at the ceiling for hours. At some point, I must have fallen asleep or spaced out. I came to and rolled over to look at my phone. It was now 12 p.m. the next day. I had opened my phone, and to my terror, I had found that I had 17 missed calls from Connor and Kyle. I'm hoping that everything from last night was just one long, bad nightmare. But I had a gut feeling that the 17 calls indicated that it was very real. I returned Connor's phone call, and he answered with an anxious voice. Dude, you might want to go turn on the news, he said with a panicked tone. I flipped on the local news channel, and to my terror, I found the old abandoned building with news reporters, police cars, and ambulances stacked outside in the old parking lot. The news reporter was interviewing the local police chief, and he informed the public that if anyone who had attended the party or was a witness to please come by the police station for questioning about last night's event. And as if that wasn't bad enough, they went on to inform the public that 4 teenagers were killed and 2 more were missing. I reached out to Connor, Kyle, and Elizabeth and told them to just stick with the plan. We left before any of those events went down. I don't like lying. I knew it was immoral and wrong, but I knew if we told the truth, no one, and I mean no one, would ever believe us. We all voluntarily got into our own vehicles and drove to the police station, where they interviewed us separately. We stuck to our story. We told them we didn't know what happened, and we had left over an hour prior to the attacks. The interview was very short, simple, and to the point before they told us that we were free to go. Paranoia had set in. Did he see us? Does he know what we look like? Does he know where we live? Is the Slender Man still looking for us? Few days of sleepless nights followed. I was anxiously glued to the television watching the news updates. And then all of a sudden, across the TV screen came a police sketch. A witness had described the attacker. Thankfully, it was not at all accurate in any way. The man they had drawn on the TV was described as being 6 foot 6 inches tall, with pale skin, a slight nose, slight ears, and small facial features. But the simple fact of the matter was, he had no facial features. The man had no face at all. He was not 6 foot 6. He wasn't 7 foot 6. He was 10 feet tall. They had also drawn the suspect in a trench coat instead of a black suit. Unfortunately, we never learned the fate of our friends Cameron and Justin. They were 2 of the teenagers that went missing that night, and they were never seen again. The other 4 victims of the Slender Man were kids that we didn't know that showed up later. Fortunately, all of our other friends were too intoxicated and couldn't recall if they saw us there when the attacks happened or not. It had been about a week since the attacks had happened. I was finally able to sleep at night and have a little bit of peace of mind, for what it was worth. I crawled in bed that night, scrolling through social media, before finally putting my phone away and deciding to try and go to sleep. There was a thunderstorm that night. I remember always finding thunderstorms so peaceful. The crash of the thunder and the large, heavy raindrops hitting our rooftop. When suddenly a loud, bright clap of thunder illuminated my backyard, and for a split second I thought I saw the Slender Man leaning around the large tree in my backyard, staring in my window, terrified, but only for a brief moment, before the thunder clapped again, illuminating my yard, only to reveal that it was a shadow of a tree branch. I kind of half-heartedly laughed at myself before rolling over and trying to go back to sleep. I had suddenly awoken some time later that night to a loud, high-pitched screeching noise, like someone dragging a screw across a chalkboard. The sound was constant and it was not letting up. I jumped from my bed and grabbed my phone, anxiously turning on my flashlight. Shine the light in the direction of my window where the noise was coming from, and what I saw I couldn't almost comprehend. It was a long, outstretched finger scraping against the outside of my window. And then, out of nowhere, a round white head with no face rose vertically, coming into the view of the middle of my window. It was him. He was back, just when I thought I had put all this behind me. I was living through this hell again. Don't go looking for the Slender Man, because if you see him and you escape with your life, it doesn't stop. It never stops. This attack happened 15 years ago, and he still comes to my bedroom window looking for me every night.